This is Learning with Coach History. This is the first of three lessons on the Great Depression, the nation's sick economy. In this lesson, you'll learn about the economic problems that led to the Great Depression. The key terms and people: deflation, price support, credit, Alfred Smith, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, speculation, buying on margin, Black Tuesday, Great Depression, and Hawley-Smoot Tariff Act. During the 1920s, the economy boomed, but there were economic problems under the surface. Tariffs helped some businesses but harmed international trade. The United States government revenues dropped because of tax breaks for the wealthy. Many Americans were not earning much. Many businesses suffered because of this. New technology caused problems for some industries. For example, railroads faced strong competition because of the introduction of cars, buses, and trucks. Industries such as clothing, steelmaking, and mining were hardly making a profit. Industries such as mining and lumbering had expanded because of high demand of their product during World War I. After the war, that demand decreased. Coal mining also suffered because of the introduction of new energy sources. Many industries had been successful in the early 1920s, but by the late 1920s, they were losing money. These industries included auto manufacturing, construction, and consumer goods. A decline in housing was an important sign of economic problems. Fewer houses being built also meant that profits in related industries fell. For example, fewer new houses meant that less new furniture was needed. The biggest problems were in farming. After the war, the demand for food dropped dramatically. Farmers suffered as deflation, or a decrease in the general price level of goods and services, took place. Their income went down. Many could not make the mortgage payments on their farm. As a result, many farmers lost their land. Congress tried to help farmers by passing price supports. With price supports, the government would not allow food prices to fall below a certain level. But Calvin Coolidge vetoed that bill. Farmers' incomes continued to drop. A decline in farmers' income was not the only problem with the economy. Americans were buying less. Many found that prices were rising faster than their salaries. Many people bought goods on credit, an arrangement in which consumers agree to make monthly payments with interest. But too many Americans were accumulating debt they could not afford to pay off. In the late 1920s, much of America seemed prosperous, but there was an uneven distribution of income. A small number of rich people were getting richer, but a large number of people were not doing well and falling further and further behind. In fact, most families earned less than the minimum needed to maintain a decent standard of living. That meant that most Americans did not have enough money to purchase all the many products flooding the market. Few people recognized the problems with the economy in 1928. The Republican Herbert Hoover easily defeated the Democratic challenger Alfred Smith. People believed Hoover when he said the American economy was healthy. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, a measure of 30 popular stocks, was way up. People rushed to buy stocks. Many people were engaging in speculation or buying risky stock in hopes of a quick profit. To do so, they were buying on margin or paying just a small down payment and borrowing the rest. The problem of buying on margin was that there was no way to pay off the loan if the stock price declined sharply. After all, many Americans had bought stock using borrowed money. Stock prices did begin to fall in September of 1929. On Tuesday, October 29th of 1929, called Black Tuesday, prices fell so sharply that people said the market had crashed. People frantically tried to sell their shares, causing prices to go down even further. There were no buyers. Many people lost all their savings. By mid November, $30 billion, or about the amount America had spent in World War I, had been lost. The stock market crash signaled the beginning of the Great Depression. This period of bad economic times, when many people were out of work, lasted from 1929 throughout the 1930s. Although the crash didn't cause the depression, it did make it worse. After the crash, many people panicked and took their money out of the bank. Many banks were forced to close. When the bank failed, other depositors lost the savings that they had deposited in the bank. Businesses also began to close. Millions of Americans lost their jobs. Workers who kept their jobs did experience pay cuts or reduced hours. The Depression spread around the world. Germany was still paying war reparations. Other European countries were struggling with debts from the war. With Americans unable to buy their goods now, European economies suffered even more. The situation became worse when Congress passed the Hawley-Smoot Tariff Act. Congress hoped that higher tariffs would push Americans to buy goods made in the U.S. The result would be to help American industries, but instead, when the U.S. charges more to bring goods in, imports from Europe declined as well. Then Europeans had even less money to spend on U.S. goods, and American industries suffered. The Great Depression had several causes. One, the tariffs and war debt policies that cut down the foreign markets for American goods. Two, a crisis in the farm sector. Three, the ability of easy credit. And four, an unequal distribution of income. These factors led to a falling demand for consumer goods. The federal government hurt the economy with its policy of low interest rates, causing businesses and consumers to borrow easily and build up too much debt.